Hello and welcome to the Rest is Football. We've got an emergency episode, show, podcast, YouTube, live, everything with Micah Richards, Alan Shearer and me, Gary Lineker, with the breaking news this morning that Erik Ten Hag has been fired by Manchester United. We thought we should get the band together for not just the podcast, but we are live on YouTube. What could possibly go wrong with this?
No swearing, Micah. No swearing.
Swearing out, that's you, not me.
Yes. Well, the news broke this morning, and it's been a kind of ongoing saga, hasn't it? Which sort of started in the summer, just before the FA Cup, when I think we got wind of the fact that Manchester United was sounding out other coaches, and we had the experience, didn't we, at the cup final where he kind of had a little bit of a go at particularly Alan. But then they seemed to go for Thomas Tuchel, but he didn't take the job. And then they subsequently went back to Ten Hag. So I suppose there was a degree of kind of eventuality about this.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think we were just waiting for it to happen. Even the way he was talking, that we're all on the same page and we all of that. They weren't really on the same page because everyone knew that they were talking to managers in the summer. So if they're on the same page, why on earth were they speaking to managers in the summer? So as soon as that came out, we all said he was a dead man walking, unfortunately. But for them then to don't give him a new contract after that. Was bizarre, really, and then back him to with 200 million since they've spent, and then 3 and a bit, or nearly 4 months, they've sacked him. It's just bizarre.
I think what's more damning for me is, when he does his interviews after the games, and we look at the games and try to analyze them, pick out certain bits and pieces of how the game's gone. And he would come out in his interviews afterwards and basically say they've played really well. And we're all scratching our heads thinking, in what department? I think Man United, and we keep saying it, they're a massive club. It comes with huge pressure. We all know that. But for them to not have an identity in 2.5 years is not good enough. No matter if it was Ten Hag, Solskjaer, Mourinho, or whatnot, to be 13th, 14th in the league is not good enough. So where they finished last season as well, and I've been quite protective of Ten Hag because I actually thought at the start of the season I could see signs of them, especially in the Community Shield, and then they got the win against Man City in the FA Cup, and you're thinking, oh, I can see something happening here, and then you said, Alan, at the start, well, I can see a little bit, but I don't see much improvement. And that was the case in the end. It just was like an accident waiting to happen at times. And in the end, it was probably the right decision.
I was going to say, do you think this is the right call by Manchester United? I mean, you can argue that perhaps they should have stuck with their guns and done it in the summer, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, it ultimately, Man United are sat in 14th position. They haven't won in Europe for about a year now, which, I mean, whatever team you support, when you look at that's a million miles off from where they should be or even want to be. And when they're giving him a new contract, when they've spent another 200 million or so, then that is not acceptable. Whether you think it's harsh, whether you agree with it or not, we all know the rules of football when you go into management or coaching. If you don't get the results, then ultimately you lose your job. Having said all that, when you look at the way they performed at the weekend and the number of chances they missed in the first half at West Ham and the decision that went against them, then it is hard to look back. I mean, they should have been, and this is no exaggeration, guys. You watch the match; they should have been 5 or 6-0 up at half time against West Ham. And then they get that decision, that awful decision right at the end that cost them the game.
Yeah, that was an appalling decision. And also, I suppose, I doubt this decision comes down to just one game, but it probably just, if they'd have won it, it probably lasted until the next bad game,
Correct.
and it's going to happen. It's not like he's not been backed. I've got a list of the signings actually here, and it reads quite something. Ugarte, 50 million. De Ligt, 45 million. Mazwari, 15 million. Lenny Yoro, 62 million. Xerxes, 42.5 million. You've got Amrabat, which is actually just a loan fee of 9 million. Bayindir, 5 million. Hoyland, 73 million. Anana, 50 million. Mason Mount, 64 million. There's a few loans down there. Then you've got Anthony, 95 million. Casemiro, 70 million. Martinez, 57 million, apologies. Malacia, 15 million. I could go on. There's a few more. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of money. And it's not quite, well, it hasn't worked at all. I mean, his argument will be, I've won trophies. And he has. He won the Carabao Cup and he won the FA Cup. But I think us as people in the game, I think you've got to judge managers on their league position generally. Yes, you give them credit for winning a cup competition. It's not easy, but the league competition is where you can actually judge them against the other clubs. And, it's obviously not been strong enough for them to persist in them. I think we should talk possibly about, the new incumbents, so to speak, at Manchester United in the ownership side of things, because they came in and everyone was going, everything's going to be all right now. We've got Jim Radcliffe. He's kind of ruthless. He'll make a few things happen. They've brought in a different backroom team, sporting directors. And it's been a bit of a shambles, if you're really honest, so far.
Yep. Sorry, go on, you, Micah. You go.
No, I was just saying before you go, Al. I think you need to give them time, though. They have got some good people in the backroom staff. I think all the noises coming out of Man United are not good. Leaks to the press and all this sort of thing. And then they had the meeting a couple of weeks ago with Ten Hag. Looked like it was going to be sacked. It didn't happen. It happens today. I think they've got the right pieces in play. I just think they need time now to, what is the philosophy for the club behind the scenes, and then can that filter down towards the player? Because some of the players you've just mentioned there, well, Agate's a good player. He's not started well. He did really well in Europe midweek. Xerxes is a good player on the ball. Hoyland can play well, but they're all different players trying to find the way in a system that is not clear. So I think long term, the backroom staff are good enough. They're good enough to do the job. I just think they need time to implement exactly what they want to do.
I would agree in terms of them being all experienced and really top in their field. But you can't take away the fact that they've had a dreadful start. I mean, when they came out about them talking to other managers, that wasn't a good look at all. Then they give him a new contract, and now 3 and a bit months later they've sacked him. I mean, it is bizarre.
We're getting a lot of comments. It's the first time we've done one of these live YouTube things. It's quite fun. You can see comments coming through, and most of them are actually about who it should be next. And we'll discuss that a little bit later. We'll discuss who we think might get it. Obviously, at the moment, Ruud van Nistelrooy has been put in temporary charge. I suspect if he goes well, he might end up with a job. We'll see. But we're keeping on the theme of how it's been handled. I think if they had their time again, they would have rethought or would rethink what they did and their strategy around that period going into the FA Cup final. Because that was the really messy part, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think in terms of they didn't know if Ten Hag was staying or going. I think them winning the FA Cup, it bought them in a little bit of time, didn't it? I think really in an ideal world, Man City would have won that game, and then they probably would have gone with a new manager. I agree with Alan in terms of a new contract. So when he signed a new contract, obviously you feel as though you have belief in this manager, but I think ultimately results weren't good enough. They had to make the change, but I think the right decision would have been to do it at the end of last season, get a manager in for pre-season, and then start fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, as bizarre as it seems, it perhaps put a spanner in the works with their plans, because they had big decision to make. Because I mean, Man United were brilliant in the FA Cup final, and then all of a sudden, I think their plans were, oh shit, we have to. This probably has to change now. This is not going to look good if we. So okay, then they stick with him. They give him a new contract. They speak to other managers, and then all of a sudden, we're all expecting, or the Man United fans are hoping and expecting that things are going to improve from the beginning of the season, and they just haven't. I mean, if anything, it's getting worse in the league. There's no doubt about it. What did they finish last year? 8th in the league, and that was the thing about what you said earlier when we first started this. He had a little pop back. Was my only question to Erik was after the FA Cup final was, wow, we've seen like a different Man United team today. The intensity, the pressure, the plan. Where has that been for most of the season? Because they finished 8th, I think it was. Yet they're now currently sat in 14th, which obviously is not acceptable.
I just saw a message of the many that are coming through. So we're thrilled you're actually joining us. One from Jaminator that says, give it to Alan Shearer. He's used to taking over clubs that are in decline.
Can I be your keeper now?
Is that the only question you spotted? Yeah. You just felt you had to read that one out?
Yeah, well, I've spotted a lot, but that amused me. Amused me slightly. Is it always the manager's fault?
Not necessarily, no.
No. It's a bit of both, isn't it? I think what you can see with the players that they're not, and just to give people some insight as to why players are always trying. They always want to do well. But players give a little bit more with a manager who's got a clear plan and knows how to win games. And obviously it comes down to a little bit of respect as well. I think sometimes with the tactics, some of the players looked a little bit bemused, if I'm being honest. They don't sort of know what the message is. And some of the body language with the players, and I don't mean body language in terms of bad body language, but just not on the front foot, ready to go, ready to engage, switched on, set pieces. Everything's just a walk. It's just, there's no enthusiasm with the players at this moment. And sometimes, that's when the manager's at the end of his tenure, when you see that with players, it's almost like it needs a freshen up now.
It's not like the players deliberately go out there and think, not really.
No.
The door. It's not like that. Players want to win football matches. We're competitive animals. You can't reach the level of a Premier League player without having, a decent work ethic and really want to win. But I think what happens with footballers sometimes when maybe there are mixed messages, maybe they're not getting massive amounts of support, maybe tactically they're a little bit in the dark sometimes as to what their role is on the field of play. And from that comes poor performance, a bit of a lack of confidence. It'll be interesting to see now. I mean, obviously with these things, there's often a bit of a kind of reaction immediately, isn't there? And the team looks re-energized when a manager goes. Ruud van Nistelrooy will come in. We're not very happy as Leicester fans because we've got Man United away in the Carabao Cup. I think it's Wednesday night. They'll have a new guy in charge. Everybody will be buzzing. I can see it now. Couldn't they have waited till Thursday?
You fancy yourself against Man United, cheeky son?
I would have done before this, but now not so much.
Guys, you on about is it all his fault? No, players will always look for excuses. They will always look for excuses, players, and you can look at many things. I mean, Ten Hag inherited a huge football club with massive problems. And he came in and got rid of Ronaldo, didn't he? Which was a huge thing to deal with. And you're right, he will always look back at the the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup win, but ultimately they're no further forward to when he took over to where they are now. In fact, when you look at the league position and the money that's been spent, then the inevitable happens.
Do you think there's a degree of truth in the fact that they brought Ruud van Nistelrooy in possibly to take the role should Erik ten Hag lose his job, which has subsequently happened? It's a bit cynical, but
conspiracy theories from guys.
Well, we'll never really know. I mean, I know Ruud did an interview with Rio Ferdinand, and he said that it was Erik that called Ruud to see if he wanted to come in. Now, we'll never know if that was prompted or that was him wanting him in or whatever. We'll never know that. But as soon as Ruud came in, that was going to start everyone talking. Well, I mean, the number of people that said, well, he's next on the list. He's getting the job.
I get why they brought Ruud in, though. Obviously, he's a good coach. He's a legend at the club. Man United have not been scoring as much goals as they should be. So I think it was a coup for them. It just... people was always going to question what are his motives once, Ten Hag obviously stepped down or got sacked or whatever it was going to be. And yeah, I always thought Van Nistelrooy was set up to step in, certainly in the short term. It just depends what they do long term now.
A friend of mine texted me actually last night saying, the problem with United is we don't live up to our XG. We're way down below it. And you could say they missed a lot of chances at West Ham, Alan. And he's saying, is there anything a manager can do about that? But that comes down to players. He said, with a bit of luck in front of goal, I think he was saying they'd be doing better. But overall, if you've got players that miss chances, that in itself is something you've got to work on, isn't it?
Did he not mention the number of goals that conceded as well then, no?
No, he's a Manchester United fan. Yeah.
But how do you deal with that then, guys? You talk about missed chances from Man United, both top strikers. When you're going through that difficult period, they're creating enough, especially against West Ham.
Yep.
What is that? Is it muscle memory? Is it confidence? What is it?
But you've also got to look at recruitment. I mean, I've not the first time I've said it, to spend, I don't know what, 70 odd million on Højlund to go and lead the attack for Manchester United game after game after game. It was an unfair ask on him because he wasn't ready for that and perhaps still isn't ready for that. So to put him into that position and expect that he was going to be Man United centre forward from when he signed for the next 7 or 8 years, I just thought there's no doubt there's a good centre forward in there. I have faith in that. But for him to be playing every single week was a big ask, and that was part of their problem.
Only 2 teams have scored fewer goals than them this season: Palace and Southampton.
Yeah,
which is quite something when you've got. I mean, there's a lot of talent in there. Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes. You mentioned Højlund, Garnacho, I think, who's actually done okay, possibly this season.
Yeah, but I know. But then you look at the Johnny Evans and Christian Eriksen, and I mean these guys have been great professionals and expected to do a job. It's not just in forward positions that Man United have struggled.
We're all big XG fans, but actually they're 7th, which isn't that bad, is it? It's not that bad. I mean, it shows you that yes, they've missed a few chances and missed a lot at the weekend, but generally they've been pretty poor, and that's the truth of it. So what happens next? What happens next? Who do they appoint? I think they'll probably give Van Nistelrooy a little bit of a run at it. I suspect he'll do quite well at the start because that's often the case. Then they'll give him the job, and then they'll either regret it or they won't further down the line. Hold
on. Before you go in, I've got a message here. Orin Denny, Big Meeks for the job.
Big Meeks, get your bursting into the managerial scene. Yeah, I mean these messages are flying through so quickly here. But Moyes back, please, says Matt. I don't know whether he means that or not.
I'm not saying it's got anything to do with it, but my mate saw Max Allegri in London the other day.
Allegri. He saw him in London. I mean, there's a lot of people.
I'm just starting the rumour, guys. I'm just starting the rumour off.
That is not. That is quite the link there. Yeah.
There's another question for Al. Mark Smith, does Alan think they'll swoop for Eddie Howe?
Ooh, that's a bit hard.
No, Eddie's at a big club. I'm joking, Man United fans. I'm joking.
Too late. Zinedine Zidane's being mentioned. He's but I've read a few people saying get Zinedine Zidane into the role. I mean, fans. Jose wants to manage manage a small Premier League club.
Gareth Southgate's on the list as well, isn't he?
I tell you what, let me read the odds out. I've got the odds of who it might be. Ruud van Nistelrooy's odds-on favourite. He's obviously got the role temporarily, so he will always have that chance at 1-2. Ruben Amorim, who I think was linked with Liverpool in the summer, wasn't he? And that didn't happen, obviously, but they've made a good appointment. Thomas Frank is 5-1. Gareth Southgate, aforementioned, 7-1, as is Graham Potter and Michael Carrick, former Manchester United player, of course. Xavi Hernandez is 9-1. They're stingy, these bookmakers, aren't they? Kieran McKenna, 12-1. Edin Terzic, 14-1, and Simone Inzaghi at 18-1. Talk about Ruud van Nistelrooy first. Sometimes he was at PSV. He was coached there for a while, and I think he left with about a game to go at the end of the season because he didn't feel he was being supported well enough. And he's come in here from having a managerial job and then ending up with kind of an assistant role. I wonder, even if Manchester United weren't thinking that he was the probable replacement, I think probably Van Nistelrooy was, even if he was asked to come by Erik ten Hag. Because not to take another managerial role somewhere. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
It'll be well, I mean, I would imagine over the last 2 or 3 weeks they have been speaking again because they're not daft. We're all thinking it's only a matter of time. So if we're thinking that, then you know that what they're thinking. So I would imagine they've been speaking to people already. But if nothing's agreed, then it could be a wonderful opportunity for Ruud because he could go in and just, you know how it works. They get one really good result, one really good performance, confidence, then who knows?
I've seen quite a few down because we've got all the comments coming through. Quite a few, obviously, Manchester United fans are saying, give it to Roy Keane.
I mean,
I think I saw him dodging the question the other day when they kept saying, would you take the job, Roy? Would you take the job, Roy? And he went, it's not available. It's not available. Well, it is now. What do you think, Micah? Do you think?
I think
he's been out of the game for quite a while, managerially.
That's the only thing that would worry me. He's been out, but you can get somebody who's been, like Van Nistelrooy potentially, who's been there, seen it. I do think he's got something, Roy. He was at Ipswich, he's at Sunderland. He did good jobs wherever he's been. It's just whether he would get frustrated with the lack of, I don't say effort, but when you're a great player like Roy Keane, you've got certain standards, haven't you? So he's all about intensity. He's all about that chemistry between like the players and the fans, knowing what the badge means for Man United. In terms of his managerial career, of course he can. They've had everyone else. And I don't say he wants to go for it. But
I love that, Micah. Well, they've had everyone else.
But they have they've had absolutely everyone else you can think of, whether it be ex-players, whether it be top managers, whether it be someone a little bit different, like a Ten Hag coming from Ajax, where they played really good football. Like, maybe they just need that leader type in there to get them going.
You've spoken to him about it, haven't you? I can tell.
No, I have not, Alan.
Exclusive. Come on, give us an exclusive.
Alan, you know as well as I do that what Mike is doing here is trying not to upset Uncle Roy.
He's already sent you a text, hasn't he?
He's made my punditry career on Sky, mate. I don't want him to leave.
Someone says Roy was a leader on the pitch. He could help Ruud van Nistelrooy. I wonder why. Because Manchester United have gone generally down big name routes and managers that have won things and stuff like that. It's quite unusual for English clubs, isn't it, to take a punt on someone, the big clubs, to take a punt on someone that, in Germany, if you've got a young coach there, they'll suddenly put them they'll get a decent job. Whereas that doesn't tend to happen here. I'm going to throw in a name here. And I think it would be very interesting. I think he's clearly a brilliant coach. A certain Lee Carsley, who they probably won't think about, but he's an imaginative coach. He plays really attacking football. The players, from what I heard at England, thought he was really good and really interesting and thoughtful on the game. The one thing he struggled with a little bit, I suppose, was the media side of things. But, I think you can learn. That's quite easy to learn quite quickly. I don't suppose they'll go for him because they'll probably go down that either stick with Van Nistelrooy if he does well at the start, which is often the case, but there are not many big names out there available at the moment in terms of your elite, proven year in, year out managers.
Ooh, where's Alan gone? Is he?
I think Alan's getting it. Oh, you disappeared there, Alan. I thought you'd being interviewed for the job just for a minute now.
Interview didn't last very long, did it?
As soon as Micah started talking, I just thought I'd have a little nod off and go to sleep.
I'm gonna throw someone's name into the hat, and it was on the odds. And Brentford fans, don't hate me.
Do you know what, Micah? He was going to be. I think he's a very good chance of getting the job if it doesn't happen for Van Nistelrooy.
Thomas Frank.
Yes. Yeah,
we worked with him in the summer, and this is, I'm not talking him up because we worked with him. It's his ideas, it is his creativity, it is his fluidity in terms of adapting different formations within the game. His set pieces are strong. He's great with the media, and he's shown what he could do with the likes of Brentford when at times they don't have massive budgets. Really gets the best out of his players as well. So, yeah, I could see someone like Thomas Frank going in there, shaking up things and actually making the place very exciting.
What do you think, Alan? You got any thoughts on who? No, I wouldn't. I mean, we spent time with Thomas in the summer, didn't we? The Euros, and I've only sort of sat and watched the work that he did at Brentford, but then to sort of speak to him and get to know him a little bit and spend time with him, I was very impressed with what he had to say and how he operates and everything else. So I think that's a really good shout. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Then there's others, obviously, like Graham Potter and Gareth Southgate. Both of them been mentioned a few times. I saw one say, "It's not Potter we need; it's Harry Potter." I'm going to let me just read a few of these out quickly. They're moving quite quickly through, so I need to be careful because some of them are quite rude. Ebby knows wine. Bring Ollie back. He was sent away too early. Kaya, Thomas Frank has a positive career record. Misfit man, I've seen a few of these. Alonso, Xabi Alonso, obviously making his name at Bayer Leverkusen. Ian Fish, Southgate, you having a laugh? No. Somebody's gone Arsene Wenger, bruv, but I'm not sure about that.
It's a new lingo, bruv.
Yeah. Bring back Mourinho. Okay.
Bring back Big Meeks, CEO.
I'm being
Chief Energy Officer.
I've got one here. A question from Bryn Devaney. Was Erik ten Hag on a sabotage mission. Hard to see it any other way. That's a little bit harsh. I would say, Bryn.
A little bit strong, that, Bryn.
It is. On the day a man's lost his job. We have to remember that as well. Boris Johnson is desperate to get back into management. Some good ones there. But it'll be interesting to see who gets it. And thank you for coming on, chaps, for a little bit of an emergency pod. It's always a big story when it involves Manchester United. It's always a big story when it involves the managerial role and who it might be. So it felt fitting. So tough day for Erik ten Hag, and interesting times ahead for Manchester United. That's it for this live YouTube episode, our first go. It was a bit all over the shop, but we did the best we can. I just wish the messages didn't go quite so quickly, but I suspect that's because there's so many of them, which has got to be a good thing. So there's lots of you watching, and thank you for doing that. So goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Cheers all.